The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 31. Atlantis. Traveling to the sunken city of Atlantis was a far more difficult prospect than traveling to other domains. The domain itself moves beneath the waves, hiding from discovery, so that even those who search for it with a mist talisman may simply find themselves at the place where it had been located a few months before. Only by following the clues left in a series of journals can outsiders hope to arrive at Atlantis, which raised certain suspicions that I later confirmed. Even once one puzzles out the map to Atlantis, travel there is difficult, for the sea around the sunken city is part of the domain itself. One cannot simply take a mist pathway to dry land within the city. Instead, one must either use spells and potions that allow one to breathe underwater and survive the ocean's tremendous cold and pressure, or else commission the kind of fantastical undersea ship that even Lemordians consider to be the cutting edge of scientific advancement. Unsurprisingly, my patron opted for the former route, but even with all the materials necessary to scribe a water-breathing ritual into my spellbook, I did not know how the item that appeared to be a ring of swimming was supposed to help me survive at such depth and temperatures. The question was answered when I donned the ring and immediately polymorphed into a sperm whale. Using what I had memorized of the Shepherd's Journal, I traveled deep beneath the waves, far below where sunlight could penetrate, the darkness interrupted only by the occasional bizarre luminous fish. My powerful shape allowed me to survive the enormous mechanical guardians of Atlantis, but as I entered the dry tunnels surrounding the city, tunnels that were miraculously free of the cold and pressure that should have killed me when I reverted to my true form, I knew that the greatest dangers still lay ahead of me. The Lord. After days of travel through the tunnels, a journey upon which I will elaborate shortly, I reached the outskirts of the city proper and was immediately set upon by a patrol of spear-wielding elves. There was an initial language barrier that they surmounted with surprising speed before escorting me to meet their king, Kashakim. Based on descriptions in the journal, I expected them to lead me through a city of beauty and wonder. Instead, I saw only ruin. Atlanteans camped in tents on the street, and the shadow of what once were towering marble palaces now were crumbling vine-covered ruins. I started in amazement at the sight of a woman using what appeared to be a pot of awakening to cook soup over a fire, and at children playing marbles with a pearl of power as a taw. My surprise only grew when I reached Kashakim's throne room, for I had never seen an elf so ancient that the years were visible even on his nigh-immortal body. His welcome was cool, but not hostile, and over dinner he explained the plight of the Atlanteans. In his telling, thousands of years ago, the gods had become jealous of the Atlantean Empire and smote their capital city beneath the waves. When they survived, the gods cursed them, causing them to slowly forget their talents, their magical abilities, and even their written language. Only outsiders, who had not been cursed by the gods, could help them to recover their former glory. He admitted that he had sent out the Shepherd's Journal and others like it in order to bring fresh blood to Atlantis. As I listened, I found myself faced by two possibilities. Perhaps King Kashakim and his people truly were innocent victims of some vengeful being of cosmic power, and his ability to escape this being's wrath through the equivalent of a message in a bottle was a goad and a torment to it. Or perhaps the jealousy of the gods was just retribution, and admitting outsiders was a necessary sign of humility that might allow the Atlanteans to begin to break their curse. Either way, helping them seems to be the best way to learn more about this domain, and might even do some good in the bargain, so I agreed to demonstrate use of the various magic items I had seen. The land. Before one arrives in the city itself, one must travel through the system of tunnels surrounding it. According to the Atlanteans, the creatures in those tunnels were once their guardians and protectors, but have gone feral with the wrath of the gods. A host of oozes seep along the walls awaiting travelers, giant vermin dwell alongside their mundane counterparts, and combustible insects called pyreflies can turn a humble cooking fire into a raging conflagration. Along the walls are murals and inscriptions depicting Atlantean history, including several that showed a blue crystal the size of a human. I saw no records in those initial days that belied Kashakim's version of events, but I made a mental note to explore them further. The city itself is a monument to stagnation and decay. Apparently, most of the Atlantean elves were once wizards of such power that magic was an unremarkable fact of life, with even the lowliest peasant knowing a few basic spells and possessing a magic item or two. Now they could cast only cantrips, using crystals that resembled miniature versions of the one in the mural as arcane foci. They had no idea of how to perform any but the most basic tasks without magic. Once they would have repaired those crumbling marble palaces with stone shape, and now that they had to rely on their rudimentary knowledge of masons' tools, they could do little to halt the city's deterioration. Likewise, without the aid of magic items that imitated druid spells, their herds and harvests dwindled with each generation. I had no difficulty using the magic items that they presented to me, and was able to help them with some basic repairs. In doing so, I learned that the claims of a curse were no exaggeration. When I attempted to teach the Atlanteans how to use their own magic items, it was like choosing someone at random and asking them to mimic my words and gestures while I cast a spell. Even if they attempted to attune to the items or said the activation words with absolute precision, they were useless in Atlantean hands. Although some of them attempted to treat me with civility, particularly the princess, Kita, whose warmth seemed unfeigned, most chatted around me in their language using tones that made it clear that they were mocking me. Surreptitiously casting comprehend languages confirmed this, in addition to teaching me more than one colorful archaic elven epithet for humans. I found myself wishing more than once to make a sizable donation to the temple of whatever god struck down their city. In these conversations that they believed to be private, they mentioned other humans who had come before me. Information that piqued my suspicion and alarm, for I had seen no sign of anyone but Atlanteans, and King Kashakim had implied that I was the first outsider they had met. When I asked about the large crystal from the murals, most of them regarded me with open hostility, and even Kita quickly changed the subject. Whatever this crystal was, it was the solution to the mystery of Atlantis. Dread possibilities. When I used comprehend languages to translate an inscription that the Atlanteans could no longer read, Kita was amazed, for apparently no one had read their script in over 1,000 years. She immediately pulled me away from the task I had been doing and took me to a large pool, far beneath which was submerged another mural of Atlantean history that she asked me to translate. Between comprehend languages and water breathing, I was able to study the mural in privacy at length. What I found was enlightening and disturbing. The greatness that so incited the jealousy of the gods was a history of conquest, enslavement, and genocide, and I became certain that any hospitality the Atlanteans had shown would vanish the moment I tried to leave. I also found a far more detailed description of the large blue crystal in these murals. Apparently, it was a power source called the Heart of Atlantis, and I thought at first that it served as a sort of arcane battery powering their foci. The Atlanteans were not wizards so much as warlocks that had this Heart of Atlantis as their patron. However, as I studied the inscriptions further, the relationship between the Atlanteans and the power of the crystal became more complicated. While it powered their magic, it did so by channeling their life force, draining them to fuel their spells. Because the crystal is so bound to the people of Atlantis, it clearly has no practical value to anyone outside of the domain, for it would be powerless if taken from the souls of those who fuel it. I could not risk Kashakim learning that I had seen the truth of their history and the source of their power, so I did not resurface from the pool. Instead, I dove further beneath the water, seeking a passage that would lead back into the tunnels. A passage that the Atlanteans themselves would have been able to access in the days when they could cast water breathing, but that would be lost to them now. As I searched along the bottom of the pool, I made another discovery that Kashakim would have wished to conceal from me. Apparently, the Atlanteans used the pool for the disposal of corpses. I found multiple skeletons, their flesh eaten away by scavengers of the sea. Most of their clothing was rotted to nothing, but I could make out clues as to their origins. A pair of skeletons in the remains of Agrabanian silks, a rib cage clad in the remnants of a jacket bearing the logo of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, a bit of clockwork so ingenious that it could only be Lemordian. I had found those previous outsiders of whom the Atlanteans spoke, and learned what would have happened to me if they had caught me trying to escape. Parting thoughts. I attempted to find the Heart of Atlantis itself before leaving, but met with no success. It would not surprise me if the Atlanteans themselves no longer have any idea of where in their city the crystal can be found, and it may even be that Kashyyykim somehow mystically bound it within his own body before losing the memory of how to do so. I suspect that if I had been able to find it, it would have had a dimmer light than the murals portrayed. If Kashyyykim cannot revitalize Atlantis through a true partnership with outsiders, their magic will die. Given the metaphysical link between the people, their magic, and the crystal, this may well kill the Heart of Atlantis as well, and with it, all of Kashyyykim's people. I successfully found a passage to the tunnels and escaped into the ocean, returning to the shore of the Sea of Sorrows. After that lengthy voyage as a whale, I took a few days to enjoy having limbs before setting off on the next leg of my journey, using a bit of chocolate as a mist talisman. I did not allow myself to wait for too long, however. After all, adventure is out there, and the wilderness must be explored. Regards, D. Caw-caw! Rawr!
Atlantis is often referred to as the Lost Empire, an idealized civilization built on advanced magic. What is the use of such an empire when its citizens can no longer wield their own power? An important lesson can be learned from studying the Atlanteans. My use of magic is well known, yet I have always seen it as a means to an end. If mundane acts or scientific study can accomplish the same feats as magic, is it not wise to learn all available methods? If one only relies on a single tool over the course of their existence, they are helpless when it is ripped from their grasping hands. The rigidity of its king and people are to blame for the current ruined remains of Atlantis' former glory. Their curse is a pitiable one, and my servant was right to assist them, regardless of their less than welcoming attitudes. Yet they are indeed the source of their own desolation, as they cling to their past instead of developing new proficiencies. Are you certain, my little witch, that the heart would be powerless if removed from the city? If separated from its people, perhaps you are correct, but one would have to remove both heart and Atlanteans to determine if it could function elsewhere. One must consider all possibilities before dismissing something's usefulness.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Aslan. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.